Trent, you.
Yeah. Well, thank you for having me. It's nice to see you all. It's been quite a while since I've been here at BoulderNet. I did used to come to the meetings more often when I worked at the YWCA. So I started out my career journey at the YWCA running the career services program after Gordon left. And then I moved on to outplacement career coaching. So I do a lot of leadership development coaching, career coaching, and executive coaching now. And I spend a lot of time on LinkedIn. So that's why I wanted to kind of share some tips and strategies and things that have worked for my clients beyond just, maybe the general things that you all have experienced around using LinkedIn and gathering information from additional resources. There is not a slideshow, so I find that the most effective way to discuss and share LinkedIn is by using LinkedIn. So I'm actually going to hop on the platform and walk through a few things, but thanks for that question. And just for me to get an idea of where you all are at with LinkedIn, if you wouldn't mind in the chat, just putting like let's say if you're a beginner with LinkedIn, intermediate, advanced, tell me a little bit about where you're at with the platform. Okay, lots of comfortable, advanced, intermediate, need some improvement. Okay, it sounds like you all are pretty familiar. Discovering new things every day. Great. So hopefully this won't be too, I guess, repetitive, or there will be some new info here for you, but I will have some time at the end for questions. So definitely know that you'll be able to ask some questions at the end as well. Okay. It changed. Yeah, so LinkedIn is constantly changing. That is one thing that I found, right, is it's built on algorithms. So the platform is constantly changing. The user features are constantly changing. I get emails from LinkedIn, and I also stay up to date with those with, fellow colleagues. But as a user, it's pretty challenging sometimes to know what's changed or what are the new features. So we'll talk about some of those today. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and share my screen here and pull up LinkedIn.
Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but I don't see your screen. Is this my problem? Oh, okay.
Okay, hopefully everyone can see it.
Yep.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
So thinking about LinkedIn, I talk about LinkedIn with my clients as it's a way to be found by recruiters and hiring managers. It's a way to network, right? It's a way to build relationships with people. And then it is a tool for research. So yes, you can apply for jobs on LinkedIn. But I think of it more as a research tool. Like it's a tool to research companies that align with your values. It's a tool to identify what skills may match new career opportunities. A tool to understand who are some thought leaders in your field. So we will discuss a little bit of the job seeking side of LinkedIn, but I find that it's most useful for connecting with people and then also being found. And just a little note on that, just a little statistic, 65% of recruiters do use LinkedIn to source and hire candidates. And we all want the job just to come to us, right? We don't want to have to really go through those applications and customize our resumes. That's very time consuming and draining, and maybe a little bit more on the reactive side of your job search versus the proactive side. So thinking about LinkedIn as a tool for you, when you think about being found by a recruiter, a hiring manager, the thing that you want to really optimize is your profile, right? So I'm not going to walk through your entire profile today, but I do want to share a few things around searches. So for your profile, you want to have it complete. So that means all of the sections that are available are complete to you, meaning if you can add 50 skills in that section, you have 50 skills. If you can use 220 characters in your headline, you're using those 220 characters. Your about section tells your story. It's clear, it's concise. So again, the profile is really how you appear in searches. And the top 3 highest rated or most viewed sections of your profile are your headline, your about section, and recommendations. So oftentimes I find people sort of forget about the recommendations piece, but employers and recruiters and hiring managers want to know what other people think of you, right? That's part of it. So if you've got some really powerful recommendations on your profile, that adds to it. So think about recommendations as, I think one of my clients said, like Yelp reviews for you, right? You want people to talk about their experience working with you in a positive light. So make sure you have at least 2 to 3 recommendations. With the headline space, I like to think of it as what is the job title you're seeking? You can put that in there first. 2 to 3 top skills. And then some sort of branding message, right? Or tagline that tells people what you do. And then here in the about section, this is often the trickiest one. So I'm a huge fan of using ChatGPT to help with the creative piece of writing your about section. I wrote mine before ChatGPT was around, but I change it constantly. And I do play around with, ChatGPT, sort of reorganizing it or adding to it. I wouldn't use ChatGPT word for word, but oftentimes people get stuck in this about section. Like, how do I write about myself? What do I want to say? How should I say it? And you do want to make this conversational. So definitely use first person pronoun, tell your story, talk about who you are, what you do, and how you do it. Then you've got your experience section. This is a pretty straightforward section. It can just be a high level overview of each position. Education, again, pretty straightforward. You just want to remove dates. Then you've got your licenses, certifications, volunteer experience, skills, and recommendations. So that, again, is the profile kind of in a nutshell. I'm not going to spend too much time on this. But just know that with your profile, you can turn on creator mode. So you can make sure that this is on. And what that does is it gives you this featured section. So you can pull posts in your featured section. You can pull articles in there. So it is a really helpful sort of feature of LinkedIn. A new feature that I haven't added to my profile, but that you can add to yours is a little video segment to your profile photo. So if you do want to do that, you can. Again, it's just a 30-second intro where you can, it's just another way to talk about yourself, essentially. So I'm looking into that as well, but it's kind of a newer feature. I did see something in the chat here, so let me just go. Oh, yes. So I do suggest removing dates from education. I suggest removing dates from education on LinkedIn, on your resume. They're just not necessary to include. We know that there is age discrimination out there, so we want to prevent any judgment around your age. Any other questions on the profile? So again, really think about your profile as this is how I'm going to appear in a search. This is the first thing someone is going to see. when they come to my page, right? So like, do I have a nice profile photo? It doesn't have to be professionally taken, but is it inviting? Is it a headshot, shoulders and above? What's my background photo? Is it interesting? Could it start some conversation? Okay. Okay, so here are a few more questions. You were directly asked what year you graduated from the university. Oh, I'd say that's a red flag. If someone is asking you what year you graduated from your university in an interview. Again, I like to, guide my clients to ask questions around, like, why is that important? So I would probably think about, like, is that company a company you want to work for if they want to know what year you graduated from university, and why they're asking that. Skills. So yes, skills a little bit more. So skills, the skills section is the section where you can add up to 50 skills. So think about the skills that are most relevant to where you're headed in your career, but you can add in skills that LinkedIn doesn't prompt you to add. So you could add in skills like empathy, compassion, active listening, along with those industry, technical, and sort of hard skills that you have. But sort of think about the skills that really define you. So maybe a little bit more of the strengths that you have as well. Oh, about recommendations. Yeah, so recommendations, they're really just a short paragraph about someone's experience working with you. So you do have to ask for a recommendation to one of your connections. They will write it and send it back to you, and then you can post it to your profile. Unfortunately, you can't edit the recommendations. So it's helpful to give some guidance on what you'd like them to talk about, whether it's like, can you talk about this project we worked on? Can you talk about my top 3 skills? So that they have an idea, and it's also takes the legwork out of it for them. Oh, career break. Yes. I do think it's helpful if you've had a significant career break, which I consider like a year or more, to use career break for LinkedIn. An active job search is 3 to 6 months. So if it's a job search and that's why you have a break, I don't know if you need to really put that as a career break on LinkedIn. But if it is an extensive break, or you're taking care of family, and you've been out of the workforce for a significant amount of time, that is helpful just to explain why. And I do think it's nice that LinkedIn gives you that option now. So if you don't have a current role, the employer will see career break. So just know that. And again, I think so many people have career breaks since the pandemic, and you don't want someone to, yes, make a judgment about that, but it's also something you don't want to hide, right? It's just you're being honest about it. So it's more about, this is why I had the career break. This is what I was doing. Maybe this is what I was learning or working towards. And then this is where I am now, right? Okay, so yes, I'm going to answer a couple more questions here around the career break. I know that's a big one. Yes, caregiving is a job. So you can definitely talk about the skills that you utilize during that time. Time management, project management, prioritization, like really list out those skills that you've used during your career break. And yes, be sure to put a picture in the banner instead of the default green one. Okay, so that's the profile piece. And then I wanted to also mention with your profile, again, you can change it, right? It's not one and done. So every time you change your profile, I like to do it every couple months, maybe every two or 3 months. That also affects how you appear in a search. So change something in your headline, change something in your about section, add a new recommendation. That's important. That goes along with activity on LinkedIn, which also affects how you appear in a search. So when we think about activity, we can go down here. So here's my activity. You can see it's posts, comments, articles. And activity is a great way to not only be found, but to network, right? So if you're thinking about, okay, I'm going to come up with an engagement plan for LinkedIn. I'm going to spend 20 minutes a day on LinkedIn. What does that look like? 5 minutes, I may scroll through my feed. 5 minutes may be reaching out to some new connections in my field. 10 minutes may be searching for companies that align with my values. And then think about, okay, that's my plan. How am I going to actively participate? Like, do I want to share an article that's relevant to my field or industry? Do I want to comment on other people's posts? And if you're commenting, yes, you can always say congratulations or great work. But I think if you want to really be seen by that person, you could maybe add some value, right? You could say, I agree with this comment and this is my perspective, right? So how can you add value on LinkedIn? And that's a big component, right? That gets the conversation going. Or you could ask a question. You could comment, and in that comment, you could say, I'd also love to hear more about your perspective on X, Y, and Z, right? So anytime that you can generate conversation, that is helpful. And one of the algorithms LinkedIn has is if you post on LinkedIn and the comments are 20 and above, it then gets pushed out to a wider network. So if you can get that engagement going, more people will see your post. Again, wider reach. So just keep that in mind. Some people will create like LinkedIn pods where, anyone who's in BoulderNet, if you post, I'm going to comment on your post and I'll do the same for you. And again, that generates more activity, more people see your profile, and you appear in more searches. So activity is key, and adding value is key. And I'd say, it's hard, right? LinkedIn is a dance between being authentic and really sharing who you are. And it's a little bit of kind of like I'm advertising for myself in some ways. And we see that a lot, right? Like everyone's like, yay, I got a new job. And you're like, okay, great. I don't have a new job yet. So, it's one thing you could say, congratulations on that new job. What was most effective in your job search strategy? Like, how did you land the job? Do you have any ideas for me? I'm in an active job search and this is what I'm looking for, right? Like, again, that's a way to engage with that person and also glean some information. Yeah, LinkedIn groups are another great way to participate. That is, a lot of people will ask questions on groups. So if you can ask questions and also respond on groups, that's really helpful. But there's so many groups out there, and participating in groups is another way to get information about your field, your industry, find job postings. So definitely participate in groups. You can also follow hashtags, and you can follow people. So thinking about like, who are the thought leaders in my field? And then what you can do is you can ring their bell. So just as an example, if I want to search for someone in my field, I'm going to just go to my colleague here. So Darren is a fellow leadership coach. And let's say I want to really get an idea of what Darren's up to. I want to add him to my feed. What I can do is ring his bell here. And that will put I'll get notified about his posts in my feed. So again, it's a way to control your feed. And then let's talk a little bit about the search function of LinkedIn, right? So you can search by keyword, you can search by skill, you can search by strength. If I want to find you know, maybe some companies. Let's say I'm creating a target company list. So I want to find some professional coaching companies, right? I can search, and then I can look at groups, people, posts. I'm going to go to companies, right? So there's a lot of companies, right? So definitely use the filters here. You can filter by location, by industry, by company size, whether they have job listings on LinkedIn, and if you have any first degree connections. So that will take the list of 15,000 companies and really narrow it down. And then once you do say, find a company, like, okay, I'm interested in, I'll just pick one here. This one's in Italy. I guarantee you I'm not going to have any connections with people here, but you never know. So if I did have a connection, right, it would come up as I would have a first or second degree connection. If I have that first degree connection, amazing. I can absolutely reach out to them on LinkedIn, ask them to make an introduction for me. I'd like to learn more about the company. I'd like to learn more about where the company is headed. So again, you want to do some research here. Like, why do you want to work for this company? Or why are you interested in this company? Really approaching it from a lens of curiosity, not a lens of, I'm looking for a job. Okay, so there's only 2 employees at this company. It's not a big company. But if I wanted to, let's just say, I want to work at CU Boulder. So I'm going to click on people just to give you an idea of how to reach out. So I'm going to narrow it down to first and second degree connections. So again, if you have a first degree connection, you can directly send them a note. If you have a second degree connection, I always suggest reaching out to one of these shared connections. So I may want to reach out to Monica. I can ask Anne, Twilla, or 10 other people to make a connection for me. So they could share my LinkedIn profile, they could do an email introduction, but that warm introduction is key. People are much more likely to respond if they know someone who is introducing you. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't reach out if they're a third degree connection, meaning you don't have any shared connections. I reach out to people all the time where I don't have a mutual connection because I'm interested in what they do and I want to learn more. And I do research on them. And I think, like, have they done any TED Talks? Like, have they posted lately? What did they post about? What is it about them that's interesting to me? And how can I create a note or a message around that? So again, you know, it is important to reach out to people you don't know on LinkedIn. You just want to do your homework and find things that are really interesting about them that you want to talk about, whether it's their role, their company, their background, what they talk about online, but definitely not about you, right? You don't want to lead with me. This is who I am, and this is, you know, what I'm looking for. It's more about the other person.
Tara, when you do those reach outs, I'm assuming that you get a pretty positive response, right? Because ultimately, a lot of people often like to talk about themselves, right? So if you reach out, I mean, to be frank, I mean, I'm assuming that when you reach out and say, "Hey, I know a lot about you. I'd like to know more about you." My guess is that because really you're fundamentally talking about the informational meeting on some level, right?
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. If you can have some sort of call to action, that's key, right? So I always say, like, do you have time, like 15 minutes to chat with me this week or next? Here are some days that work well. Let me know what works for you.
Right.
So yes, you always want to have that call to action, and most people will, you know, will respond, but some people won't. You just can't take it personally, right? You got to just keep going and find someone else. A lot of people are busy or they're not on LinkedIn, right? They're not,
Sure.
yes, they have a profile, but they're not very active on LinkedIn.
Sure. Yeah, sorry for the distraction, but I just wanted to point out that that's just fundamentally what you're inviting, right? Is those using LinkedIn to, take that next step. Fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. Yeah, and so I would say that if you're going to have an engagement strategy, spending time researching people that you want to connect with, who work at your target companies, is the number one strategy that I share with my clients. The more conversations you can have, the more effective your job search will be. So again, that leads me to the jobs tab of LinkedIn, where I suggest you maybe spend 20% of your time. So yeah, it's a great way to find out who's hiring. Like, are there some new companies that I didn't know about in my area that are in the industry I'm, searching in? What are some of the key skills that companies are looking for project management these days? Or what are some trends? Like, wow, there's a lot of companies in AI now. Like, what are they looking for? Is that something I'm interested in? So again, there's definitely value in the jobs tab. I'm not saying that. It just can it can be a time suck, right? So if you spend all of your time searching for jobs on LinkedIn and applying, it's not quite as effective as reaching out to people and having conversations. And that is because typically the job is posted, but they already have someone in mind, right? So not always, but sometimes. So just think about that. That's often why we get the no response or the automated response. So with the job tab, you can set up the job alerts, right? Like what are the jobs I'm focused on? Again, use all the filters. Filter out, is it remote? Is it on-site? Is it hybrid? What's the company size? What's the location? So definitely use all those filters. So the job alerts otherwise will be for positions that are completely unrelated to what you're looking for. And then you can apply through LinkedIn. I always recommend going to the company's website and applying if you do want to apply for the position, customizing your resume and adding a cover letter if it's an option. If you do the apply through LinkedIn, LinkedIn will automatically pull the resume or ask you to upload a resume. And then that's the resume that it will use every time you want to apply through LinkedIn. Okay, sorry, just going back to some questions here. Yes, law of reciprocity, absolutely. Always offer to help that person in any way you can. Provide value in any way you can. Maybe they're looking to start a new project. Like, can you promote it for them, or can you comment on their posts, whatever it is? Is it better to ask for phone calls or in-person meetings? That's up to the person that you are trying to connect with, I would say. If they prefer in person, great. Typically, I do them over Zoom. Or Google Meet, whatever platform you want to use. Phone call is fine too, but I find that if you can at least see the person virtually, that helps build that connection. Yes, you do want to maintain the connections after you connected. So that is a great point. So once you've connected with the person, and in that conversation, I would ask, is there anyone else that you would be comfortable introducing me to that could be helpful for me right now? So could be someone else in their company, could be someone else in their network, could be their neighbor, could be their friend, could be a colleague. It doesn't necessarily have to be someone else in their company, right? They could say, actually, I know someone else in education who's hiring who could be a great fit for you to talk with. So again, you always want to build on that initial conversation and follow up. So definitely always send a note, like, thank you for your time. The information you shared on X, Y, and Z was really helpful for me, and I'm now going to buy this book or listen to this podcast. Or again, it's not just thanks for your time, right? You're adding in more than that. and definitely building on it. So once that person introduces you to 1 or 2 more people, you'll do the same thing with them. And that's really how you build momentum and gain traction when you are building these connections. All interviews you've had have been through referrals through LinkedIn networking. Awesome. That's great. That's what you want. That's a great way to, again, sort of bypass the application process and get some inside information about the company, right? If you've already talked to someone who works at the company before you apply, think about all that inside information you have, right? Like, what's the culture like? What do they look for in employees? So you can ask those questions if that person is open to you saying, like, if you are saying, I'm looking for a job and this company is really in alignment with my values and what I'm looking for, would you mind sharing a little bit more about, the hiring process, or what you think, the team is looking for, or what are some gaps in the team, or what are some skills that this company finds like very valuable right now. So think about your questions. Those are really important. You may only have 15 minutes, so pick your questions kind of like strategically. How can you change the resume? LinkedIn sends an easy apply. You can't. So that's why I honestly recommend going to the company's website, because that gives you always the option to customize your resume. So again, it will just use the resume that you have unless you upload a different one each time. Okay, job alerts. Okay, let's see. The last thing I want to share about LinkedIn before I open it up for some questions is for those of you that may be exploring new career paths, you can use LinkedIn Career Explorer. And what this will do is it will help you match skills to new career paths. So it's another kind of new feature that LinkedIn has. And it's a useful tool if you want to do some exploration. So just wanted to mention this as well. And one thing that I've noticed too, as I spend more time on LinkedIn and I'm more active, LinkedIn has asked me to contribute my perspective to LinkedIn articles. So again, you can establish yourself as sort of a thought leader in your field by contributing to articles on LinkedIn as well. So again, I think that takes a little time, but not too much time. Okay, I'm just going to open it up to questions now. I got a note from someone I'd introduced a connection to 2 years after. The person described how that introduction in that job was now leading to a better job in a new state. That's great. That's amazing, right? That's introductions and connections are powerful, right? It's the number one way that people find fulfilling jobs. So I can't highlight that more.
It was a gift in more ways than one. It came on a day when I really needed to remember I matter, I have value, and I did something good that led to something good for someone else. So that's colored my impressions of LinkedIn. When people send me connection requests, I am careful about which ones I accept.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe that would be something to talk about. Which ones should we be pursuing and which ones should we accept? I mean, I'm getting one from Amway salesman. I don't want that.
Yes. So I would say if the person is looking to sell you something that you're not interested in buying, probably not someone you want to connect with. I rarely connect with someone that I don't have any mutual connections with and has not added a note as to why they want to connect with me. So the note piece is key. And it needs to be a little bit more than, hey, I saw your profile and I'm looking to connect. I want to know why they want to connect with me. And sometimes before I accept their connection, I will ask, thanks for reaching out. Why do you want to connect with me? Is there something that we have in common? Are you looking for advice? Or, what is it about my profile and me that you want to connect with? So Definitely always add a note and be strategic with who you connect with, because the goal is that you can help them and they can help you, right? In whatever form that is. So if you connect with people that you don't know, they can't help you and you can't help them.
I've been following people before I make a request just to be sure that we are on the same page and that I have more to talk about when I write that note. But it sounds like maybe ringing the bell would be another option or a better option. Or is it the ringing the bell for after I've established the relationship?
So ringing the bell just really kind of controls your feed. It pulls that person's posts and puts them at the top of your feed. So you definitely still want to follow them and connect with them. The ringing their bell is really about controlling your feed. Okay. Oh,
Looks
sorry.
like Trent has a hand raised.
Sure.
Yeah, so Tara, I have a question that's sort of not really a LinkedIn question, a more general question, if you're willing. So
Sure.
quite often people express concerns about, I have gray hair, kind of the ageism issue, right?
Yeah.
And I know that right now a lot of the baby boomers are moving into retirement, right? Which is leaving a huge brain drain. It's leaving a lot of positions, but it's a huge brain drain, right? And so I really wonder about the gray hair isn't so much as a liability, but an asset, right? And how to use LinkedIn or just the gray hair in general as, again, use that as an asset, right? Hey, I've got experience, right? Don't as a positive, right? How as a career coach, how are you addressing that, and how would you recommend people stop thinking about their 30 years of experience as a liability and come in not as a lamb but as a lion of, hey, you don't need 20-year-olds, right? You need 50-year-olds because you don't need mistakes in the workplace. You need competence.
Right. Well, I think we need both, right? We need the 20-year-olds and the 30-year-olds and the
Right,
40-year-olds and the 50-year-olds.
right. But I mean, you need to backfill those positions because, again, you're experiencing the brain drain, right?
So I think that it does start with your mindset around it, right? If you come at it with, oh, I'm not as marketable, or, oh, no one's going to want me because I'm older, versus, gosh, I have a lot of insight and experience and story to share. I could be a great mentor in this next company. So I think it starts with your mindset around it. And then it really is just owning it and sharing it. I mean, don't try and hide it, right? It's who you are. So I think that on LinkedIn, yes, still post your profile picture. It's not like you want to hide who you are, but maybe you make a post about it. Maybe you share your story. Maybe you say, I'm really excited in this chapter of my career to be adding value in these ways. And this is what I've learned in my 20-year career. So the posting about what you're looking for, where you're at, and sharing your story is incredibly valuable. It gets a lot of traction. I often will say to my clients, like, don't just let your network or recruiters know that you're open to new opportunities. Create a post around it, right? Like, you want to say, this is who I am. This is where I excel. This is what I'm passionate about. And this is how I could use some help. Right. So don't be afraid to post about it and share your story wherever you're at in your career.
Historically, my sense was that employers were a little bit shy about, older workers from a salary standpoint, right? People more senior in their careers typically receive a higher level of compensation. But again, given the fact that a lot of those higher compensation people are moving out of the workforce, again, that leaves salary cap, to use a sports analogy, right? It leaves salary cap room to bring in, older workers, right? So again, I really think that, again, quite often people at BoulderNet, worry about the ageism thing. And I really think that they perhaps overburden themselves with that topic and hinder themselves.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I think again, you want to prevent any judgment that you can about age.
Sure.
So that's important. But I also think that, you want to align with companies that will value your experience. So, depending on what that looks like if you spent the last 5 years learning about AI, great. Doesn't matter how old you are. That's a really valuable skill. And there's a lot of AI companies out there right now.
Sure.
So again, it's more about how you present yourself and share your story. And it doesn't have to be, I'm overqualified, or they're going to want to pay me, less than, what I'm worth. It could be just more about those conversations around, what companies are focused on hiring employees that have a lot of experience and are able to add value.
Sure.
And what fields or industries are also growing that I can add to.
Sure. Okay, cool. Yeah, sorry, I'll defer to Carol.
Hi.
Oh yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Hi, thanks. I tried to put it in the chat, but I just wanted to emphasize I had a terrible experience with two people I knew, and one person I referred to my other contact who I'd known for like 20 years, and they actually met and they went to lunch, and apparently it went badly. And the person I referred to my long-term contact was late and kind of snooty and all kinds of bad stuff. I didn't hear until I talked to my long-term contact about 3 weeks ago, just coincidentally. And she said, don't ever refer anyone like that to me again, and on and on and on. And I felt terrible. So I think it's really, really important, if you're using someone's contact, be respectful, say thank you, because that can fall back on everybody in the chain.
Absolutely. Yes, 100%. And that's why if someone is asking you to make an introduction, you want to feel comfortable that you can make that introduction knowing this person is going to handle that situation respectfully. Yeah. Any other questions? All right, there are some in the chat.
I think Brandon has his hand up.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
If you could speak a little bit more to networking strategy. I know you said only spend 20% of your time researching jobs. I guess I'm kind of in a position where I know what I want, but I'm also getting to the point where I shouldn't be that picky. And I find myself not necessarily as a time suck going through there, because there are jobs that I'm interested in and I would be a good fit for. So I feel like I'm kind of working backwards in networking. Then I'll go to apply, then I'll go to people and I'll start reaching out. Kind of what I've been doing is reaching out to people that I think would be in my team. And I've actually had pretty good success with people connecting and taking meetings from that. However, I don't know if I need to change up my tactics and go try and be connecting above them, to their director and sorting them out, because I'll get valuable information about the company, but a lot of times it's they don't really have a lot of pull. They can give a recommendation, but it's kind of after the fact I've already applied. So I don't know if I'm doing it backwards. I know I kind of just said I was doing it backwards, but I don't kind of chicken before the egg thing, I guess, is what I feel like I'm running into.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So So again, I think that researching companies on LinkedIn is great. It's the sort of searching and applying for jobs on LinkedIn that I recommend 20% of your time. I think that if you can take it a step back, so if you look at what are the industries I'm interested in, and then what companies in those industries do I want to focus on, right? So if it's multiple industries, what are the top 10 companies? And then within those companies, prioritizing what are the companies that are growing? What are the companies that align with my values? What are the companies that are producing a service or a product that I'm interested in? And then focusing on, regardless of whether there's a position open, talking with people at those companies. And I think your strategy of meeting with people who are your peers is an excellent one. That's a great way to just get some information into the role that you would, again, be either working closely with or working in. And you could take it a step further and say, you know, there is a position that I've applied for. Would you feel comfortable connecting me with the hiring manager?
Okay.
And if they say, you know, unfortunately, our company policy won't allow me to do that, or I can only send you a referral. Okay, you asked. You could also say, if there's another job that's posted, how would you suggest I approach applying for it? Should I talk to someone first? Should I apply and then reach out to you? Can I send you my resume so that like you can send it on to the hiring manager if there is a position that opens up? So depending on that person, you can sort of ask, like, what are you most comfortable with? I had a conversation with someone who worked at a company, and she said, you know, I think you'd be a great coach for these employees who don't get coaching. Why don't you write a proposal up and I'll pass it on? I was like, okay, you know, so you never know what the person is going to come up with, but you want to keep the door open, right? There could be a position in that company that's not posted or they're not hiring for, but that you could create. So you could also say, hey, you know, how would you feel if I wrote a job description and sent it to you? And like, that's what I'm really looking for.
Okay.
So get creative. You know, you never know how someone will be open to helping you.
Okay. Appreciate it. Is there a way on your job filters to filter by industry?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
Cool. Clint and Beth both have their hands up.
Should I
Anyone
jump in?
Go ahead, Beth. Yeah, go ahead, Beth.
Yeah, so I currently have a job. And so I don't want my current employer to know that I'm looking for a job. Any tips about that on LinkedIn?
Yes. Well, so does your headline have your current position?
Yes.
Okay. So I would change your headline to be more of your professional brand. So regardless of whether you're employed or unemployed, you want to do that anyways. It doesn't need to be your current title at the company. I mean, the company will automatically get populated on the right-hand side, but you want your professional brand to be all-encompassing, right? So
Yes.
instead of it just being one position title, again, it's like those key skills that you have and that tagline of what you do or how you help or what you provide or what you're passionate about. So I would start with that headline because that's what's going to be how you appear in searches.
Okay.
And that won't give your employer any inclination that you're looking for a job. The only way that they would know is if you put the hashtag open to work on your profile.
Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, I would start engaging more. I would start, following more people in your field that can make connections for you. And again, thinking about like the companies that you want to work for and are there any mutual connections? And again, you can just propose it as you're exploring, right? So even if you're employed, you're exploring what else is out there.
Thank you so much.
Beth has her hand raised.
I'll go after Beth here. I posted early in the chat. One thing is I read an article regarding the open to work banner and that they say that you should take it off periodically because with the LinkedIn algorithms, it'll put you back at the top. But I wanted to know how frequently, how long do you need to take it off? Is it like just 2 seconds and you put it back up, or do you need to leave it off for a month? Or, what is the timeline? Is that even true? What's your thoughts around the open to work banner?
Just curious, Clint, was that a LinkedIn article or was it just it was?
I believe it was, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, if it was a LinkedIn article, I don't know. I'm going to be honest. I don't know the answer to that question, mostly because I don't necessarily always tell clients to put the open to work hashtag banner on their profile. I leave it up to them. It's kind of personal preference. I think sometimes it could take away from your brand. I think that, again, sharing the post as to what you're open to and what you're looking for is more effective than simply just putting the hashtag around there. I always suggest letting recruiters know you're open to new opportunities. So unfortunately, I don't know the answer to that question, but you could play around with it. I think you could probably try some different things, take it off, 5 days later, put it back on, and see if, you know, your profile views change or anything like that in your analytics.
Okay, one other follow-up question, and then I'll let somebody else, because I know we're running out of time, is in regards to the filtering, like job alert filters and stuff. I find them that they don't work very well. They're too generic. You put in like cloud operations, for example, I'll get operations for 7-Eleven employment. You know, I mean, it's just like, it takes a lot of time to go through all these job alerts when 90% of them don't have any pertaining, you know, to what I'm looking for.
And that's why I don't suggest spending a lot of time on the job on LinkedIn. Again, I think it's like a great research tool, but it's not a great job board. Let's just put it that way. For those of you that are located in the Front Range area, I definitely suggest Luke's Circle and Andrew Hudson's job list. You'll find more like curated positions, and they're working directly with the employers, right? So those are the 2 job boards that I always suggest. I think LinkedIn, yes, with the job alerts, every once in a while there'll be a position that's close. But it's just they haven't nailed that yet.
Can you post
in the
those
chat.
job boards or links to it in the chat so we have
Oh,
them?
sure. Yep.
Thank you. Thank you, Tara, for all your insight. It's always good to hear. You know, I'm going to different meetup groups and I hear from different people that are in the industry, coaches, you know, and you hear different things all the time. And it's kind of good to take pieces of all of it because it's all good information.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Tara. While you're putting those links up on the board, Clint, I'm so sorry I missed you there. You lowered your hand and I didn't know if you still wanted to go. There was somebody else before Kathy. So I'm going to call on Kathy, but if I missed anybody, please feel free to raise your hand. I know we're a little bit over time, so if folks have to pop off, no problem. Tara, you're okay with just answering a couple more questions?
Oh, sure. Yep.
Wonderful.
Yeah,
Kathy.
Hara, I did get a message in the chat. Someone asked if Beth maybe wanted to introduce herself, and she may have gotten missed.
No,
Oh,
I'm good. Thanks, though.
Okay, cool. I just wanted to ask.
Tara, I know this is it varies by person, but just in general, I'm getting sucked into the job applications on LinkedIn. Can you suggest an optimal like allocation of time, just so I have something to shoot for in terms of time management?
Yes. Let me just ask you, how much time are you spending on LinkedIn?
It very much varies by day, but 3 hours a day, or right now I'm doing an application, so I'm doing a lot.
Okay. So if you're spending 3 hours a day on LinkedIn, I would suggest spending roughly 45 minutes on job applications.
Okay.
I know that's crazy, but that's my strategy. So
Or maybe think percentage is easier just in general.
20%. 20%.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So again, if you think about it, like
and the other 80%? And the other 80%?
80% is on like activity, engagement, and like building relationships, right?
Okay.
So that's key. So, and it doesn't have to be just on LinkedIn. I mean, I want to highlight that too, right? Like these networking opportunities, conferences, webinars. I mean, if you can get out in the world and talk to people, even better, you know, like if you're sitting next to someone at the coffee shop and they're doing some work, or you hear something, you could say, hey, that's interesting. You know, what are you working on? Right? You never know where those conversations are going to lead to. And like I've had clients get interviews for jobs on the plane when they're sitting next to someone. Or I think if you can get out from behind the screen and network and build relationships in real time, that's really important. And it often gets, like overlooked, right? So just think about that too. Like, even if there's like someone else in this group who you can meet for coffee and strategize and share and just say like, okay, what's working for you this week? Or how can we hold each other accountable? Or what's on your radar? What are some additional resources you're using? So if you can get out there and just go to some events that are focused on your interest, doesn't necessarily have to be focused on your profession. That's another great way to connect with people.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I can to put an emphasis on that. I mean, the guy that ultimately became the president of the last company I worked for, he became known by our company because of a shared ski lift ride. So that stuff happens.
Absolutely. I mean, you just really never know. That's such a good point. Thank you so much, Tara. This has been such a great presentation. I can see in the chat, folks are really excited to dig in and shift their strategy and not waste their time doing the things that aren't working. That is so important. Thank you for being here with us. I believe that we have a open networking available after this. Is that right, Trent?
Yep.
So if you didn't have a chance to introduce yourself and want to stick around, please feel free to stick around for a little bit more time. This has been fantastic. Any last thoughts, Tara, that you would like to share with us?
Oh, I just thank you for having me. I put my LinkedIn URL in the chat if you want to connect with me. And I'm here to support you. I know how hard it is to be in a job search. So anything you can do to keep your mindset in a place that's present and as positive as possible, and take care of yourself, that's important. So yeah.
Yeah, Tara, thank you so much. That was great.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, next time we are going to be having sort of that open networking meeting, and bring your problems. We're going to be doing real-time workshopping of whatever problems. I mean, we're going to be doing intros, and today it was very much kind of keep things moving. Next time it's going to be how can we do real-time problem solving of people's problems. So that's going to be the focus of the next meeting.
And Trent, can you stop recording?
Certainly.
So yeah, who didn't have a chance to introduce themselves?